We're delighted to have partnered with NordVPN again for this season. We partnered with them last year, and they are, of course, a supporter of Rangers FC as an official sponsor there. And best of all, we can give you an exclusive NordVPN deal. If you go to nordvpn.com/heart and hand, you will get a huge discount off your NordVPN plan and one additional month for free. Completely risk-free. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee with Nord. And look, I use this product. I would highly recommend it. I used to work in web, so I know how easy it is to steal people's data, especially if you're using a Wi-Fi system that is a shared one, or you're using 4 or 5G, then your details can be out there. With NordVPN, they're absolutely not. And there are other advantages to it as well. You can watch sporting events that maybe aren't being shown in your region. You can purchase flights from different virtual locations, and they do make your flights cheaper. This is very, very useful. What a price is in the UK isn't the same as what a price is in America or a price is on the continent. NordVPN can save you money. You can buy purchasing subscriptions from other countries at a cheaper price, and you protect your data while travelling and using public Wi-Fi. I keep coming back to that. Anyone who's at the hassle of a cancelled card will know what I'm talking about. So all you need to do is go to nordvpn.com/heart and hand, and you'll get a huge discount off your plan and 1 month additional free, completely risk-free. I urge you to do it. Hello everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast. As usual, I'm your host. My name is David Edgar, and I'm joined this week by two of my favourite members of the Heart and Hand team. First of all, the Sage of Saltcoats, it's Andy McGowan.
Thanks very much. I think you just say that to everybody now. Your favourite podcasters.
You're all my favourites in your own way. In the case of the next one, it's actually quite true. It's Caroline Morrison.
Hi, David. Good to speak to you and Andy.
Well, folks, we had a 3-0 victory away at Livingston at the weekend, and let's get straight into the match, first of all. Andy, the bench was very young. On the one hand, good. You know, there's 5 academy players there. We would see later on a debut for Bailey Rice, who's the ridiculously young age of 16. Somebody born in 2006 playing for Rangers. It doesn't even bear thinking about. But that was because we were carrying a few injuries. And before we get into the match, let's just, we have a huge game coming up on Sunday. Obviously, we'll have a full preview of it on Heart and Hand Extra later in the week. But the big one was Tillman, because he's been playing so well lately. He's a game winner. He's somebody that you can rely on to produce moments, extraordinary passages and matches, and it's been happening with regularity the last few weeks. He would be a massive miss. But then also Jack and Lundstrom, two guys who in that type of battle can be very useful, even if it's not to start. The way a game might go, for whatever reason, options we could really be doing with.
Especially Tillman. So, you get with Livingston, they're going to be stuffy, they're going to be well drilled. And you've got that pitch to contend with. Now, whether that's a mental thing or an actual thing is another thing. But I was disheartened to see that. At first, I wondered if it was just a case they're not going to play Tillman on plastic for whatever reason. Because I think he missed the Kilmarnock game. I'm pretty sure he missed that at Rugby Park. And Jack and Lundstrom have been there, done it. And I've got to say, David, I wasn't getting into trepidation that they were missing. We're in a better place after the transfer window because of Cantwell for one. That if Tillman's no playing or whatever, then you're not quite in panic stations for creativity. So I honestly didn't know the implications for next week. I must have missed that, or maybe it wasn't kind of publicised as much. But the 3 of them being doubts for next week was the bigger story for me, rather than them being a loss for Livingston.
Yeah, definitely. And Caroline, they're guys that you would all, Tillman, we all know about it. It goes with it saying the way he's been playing, what he can do. But as I say, especially for an Old Firm game, and I think in an Old Firm game, benches are important. Both sides would normally have a strong bench, and you need the options because it might go the full 120. You might need to freshen up. The game will develop into different stages. As many options as possible as common sense tells you, that you can rely on. And that's no disrespect to the younger players, but guys who've been there before, the more the better.
Exactly. And Arfield is also a great example of that, because I know he's not been quite so prominent in the team, but we've seen in recent history he can come on and make an impact like he did in the Aberdeen semi-final. And I think it means that you've got, older players with kind of a more experienced head and the kind of experience of playing in fixtures like this, of winning games. And it'll be a miss if we've not got Arfield, but more in particular Lundstrom, Tillman and Jack available. The, I guess, silver lining is that he did say he hopes they might be in training by the end of next week. It's very much touch and go, but that will be a huge influence on how next weekend goes.
Yeah, I think it's very much a game that probably won't be decided purely by the starting 11s. I think that the two teams are quite evenly matched. So with that in mind, it might come down to who uses their substitutes better, and of course who's got the better quality ones that we can call on at certain important stages of the match. So to the match at the weekend, and you know what you're going to get in Livingston, Andy. You're going to get a physical challenge. One of the things about the previous match with Livingston, that terrible 1-1 draw that really was this at the beginning and the end, it felt like for Giovanni van Bronckhorst, was that David Martindale said afterwards what he had done, and you could see it, was he told his players to completely jam up the middle because he didn't think Rangers could play through us, and that we would then resort to getting the ball wide, which we did, and crossing into the box, and he felt that they had the height in the team to deal with it. And that was the day, you'll remember, we put in 73 crosses. So I wanted to see a little bit more guile, a little more verve in the side and that, and trying to play through the middle. But the difference in this game in particular, I felt, was that the midfield was very effective in, first of all, strangling Livingston, not letting them out. And then because we were able to apply that pressure on them, that's when you force mistakes in a way that we just didn't do in that 1-1 draw.
Yeah. I mean, I was at the game, obviously, and at half time I'm like, who had a shot? You know, their goalie's not made a really meaningful save, but we were in total control of the ball, which means that they're not getting corners, they're not getting set pieces, which is a lot of their game and a lot of their threat. So if you can keep control of the ball and you get the breakthrough, you know that you're halfway there. But you're right, we did tend to. I mean, I thought Barisic had a good game, and some of his deliveries were wicked. I thought Sakala was positive, albeit the quality wasn't quite there when he got to the byline or whatever. But there was nothing really happening in between the sticks, and I thought Morelos was particularly ineffective for the full 90 or for the full time he was on the park. But at no point was I sitting here thinking, "Oh, this is slipping away for us," or "This is going to be one of those days where you just can't get out the bit." I always thought it was going to be a breakthrough at some point. And some of the football we played, David, was actually quite tidy. I thought, Canwell's going under the radar a wee bit. I think he's a pure footballer, and I think he's linking up really well with other footballers of the team like Kamara. And I think he's going to get better and better. He's a wee bit different from what I expected. I thought him to be more of a ball carrier, whereas his passing's actually pretty exquisite and natural. So, and then you've got Raskin. Raskin's come in there and he looked as if he'd been playing for Rangers for a lot longer than 3 weeks. And I think he'll get better and better. So there was no point that really I was worried about it. But at half time, I thought we need to find a cutting edge. And I was thinking, well, we know it's a fault of ours because it was the same against Partick. The first half we were pretty inert in terms of actually finding a cutting edge. So it's something we really need to sharpen. And I don't know if that's personnel or if it's, the way we play.
I think about both. I think mentality kicks in. We've spoken before about the passive starts, and the manager's spoken about it. It's not something that he wants to see, but you contrast it with Tynecastle, where they went out and just right from the start. But I do tend to agree with you, by the way. I thought, Caroline, that the midfield trio were very good at the weekend. As I say, I thought they utterly dominated the game. Thought they kept moving the ball. They kept giving opportunities. Where I think it failed, and I agree about Barisic, I think his crossing was absolutely terrific. And of course, Tavernier pops up with 2 goals. But for me, Caroline, I thought that where it was falling down in that first half was I didn't think that the front three, any of them, had a particularly good game at the weekend. And that maybe alludes to the frustration Andy spoke about.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think Morelos was a little bit frustrating. I know he won us the penalty, but that aside, he didn't look like too much of a threat. And Kent, I think, had moments, and we'll probably come on to talk about one of the bigger moments. Had he not been offside, I know he would have won another penalty. I know that he had that one-on-one with the keeper, which we'll speak about in detail, but it's never quite the full package from Kent, although he's a threat and he can do so much dangerous work. He's not a finisher, and that's where you're maybe looking to elsewhere in the team. And unfortunately, Morelos and Sakala aren't that consistent or reliable when it comes to that at the moment. So seeing Roof come on and hearing Beale talk about Roof, deliberately not starting the game, given that it's the plastic surface, but having him come on and make the impact that he did, I mean, it suggests to me that he must be in real contention for a start at the weekend. And I think that's one thing that we could really benefit from. Even if he can't see out the full game, and I doubt he'd be able to, I would really like to see us start with him and have that option for a real deadly threat in and around the penalty area, because we've missed that for quite some time.
It's belief for me when one of the other front three go through, I don't have any certainty that they'll score. I hope they will. In the way that with Cholak, I expect him to score because he's a terrific finisher. Roof, I expect to score. Whereas the other three, you're kind of more hoping they'll score. And sometimes at the moment, I think they're like that in their finishing. We know that Sakala's an erratic player, and Andy, we got an early glimpse of that where he had the ball in the net, but we always say he was at least a yard offside. This one, he literally was at least a yard offside. There was a gap that you could have fit in another human being into between him and the defender. And look, you can be unlucky with an offside. Absolutely. In this VAR era, you certainly can. But that falls into you cannot be offside there, or not. You can't be that far offside. You'd get shouted at that if you did that in a school team, never mind, because he can see the defender. You've got to at least try and keep yourself level and give yourself a chance.
He was nearly in the Union Bears.
Exactly.
Listen, I'll defend Sakala all the time because I've said he plays with an empty head. He's not an academy player. Now, you might sit there and say, Andy, you don't need to be an academy player to know how to play offside as a striker, but he should have been onside. But if he's onside behind the defender, Davey, I don't know if he'd have made the ball. The defender
maybe not, but then it doesn't matter because he makes it, but he's miles. I mean, it wasn't even close.
So, given that I'm his agent, and
yes,
I'm going to say that at least he comes in off the wide areas as a wide striker and makes that move. Now, I'm not going to start attacking Alfie, but see if Alfie could do a front post run, he'd double his goal tally for the season. The amount of balls that go in, especially for Barisic, and he's behind the defender. It happens too often. So I would give Sakala the benefit of doubt for that one. It was ridiculously offside, but it's promising that he is your biggest goal threat just now for me, because he turns defenders, he gets them facing their own goals, he shoots. Now we're talking about the lack of cutting edge. One thing you can't say about Sakala, right, might end up in Rosette, but he has a shot and he causes chaos. And in the second half, he came out and done the same. He had a great shot and a great save for their goalie. We just don't do enough. We've not got players that shoot. And you can look at the midfield in particular that, Kamara would shoot. You need to have a gun at his head for him to actually shoot. And when he does, it's usually a kind of pass into the net he wants to do. So as a team, we're shot shy and we're not direct enough at times. And we're just maybe, and it sounds ridiculous, we're just maybe a wee bit too patient at times, particularly in the first half, and then time ebbs away and before you know it, it's half time. So, you're not going to get me saying in bad about Fashion Sakala, David.
No, I mean, I just, as I say, I think he's been playing well. I just don't think that annoys me, right? Yes, you sitting there Rangers data, but it does, right? Just you can't be that far offside, right? There is a rule. You're a professional footballer, you should know it. But we did get the breakthrough, Caroline, 25 minutes. VAR penalty. The argument that's often put forward for things like this is, oh, well, it happens all the time. You try that in a court if you walk in and you're getting done for speeding, and you say, oh, well, other people speed, they won't let you off. Right, it's called to quoque. You're not allowed to use that as a defence. And I think there are times where it is difficult for a ref to see, or you think there's not, where it's the hands on the shirt net very quickly, like shoots out, grabs a wee bit, and then pulls back, right? And they're the harder ones to give. When you're holding the guy's shirt as he runs and you stop him from jumping, it's very hard. When it's clearly a few seconds, it's a hard one to deny. And to be honest, I thought it was an absolute stonewaller, and very unsurprised that it was given. Silly from the Livingston defender because Penrice, because his teammate Obalai is going to win the header and get it away. He doesn't need to do it. I just think that modern defenders are so conditioned that that's what they do. There was a moment later on in the half where he went to do it again, and you saw him, he realised, oh no, I better not do this. It's become second nature to a lot of defenders.
Yeah, the fact that there's any debate about this is just a bit unusual. The fact that it's us.
It's not unusual, it's us, yeah, exactly.
For us, yeah, you're right, it's not unusual. Generally speaking, though, it shouldn't really be a point for debate. It's one of those things, if you get caught doing it, you're unlucky, but you're going to get punished. It's not a surprise. And like you say, the defender caught himself doing that exact thing later. It's almost ingrained, but with VAR, like it or not, it is here. And they have to be very aware that that's going to get picked up, and they're going to concede penalties if they're going to do that. So there can really be no credible argument that the penalty shouldn't have been awarded. And it was interesting to see Tav take it, because obviously he's Mr. Reliable, but the last penalty he didn't convert. So I'm sure he was relieved and delighted to send the keeper the wrong way and actually very comfortably score that goal.
I'm not saying that I'm already looking ahead to the match at the weekend, Andy, but when we got that penalty, I thought to myself, oh God, Tav's hitting it. If he misses it, that'll be 2 in a row. What if we get one next week? Because obviously we'll get one next week because the Illuminati. But that, talk about, I'm always, no, take a game as it comes, lads. And there I was guilty of not doing it. But he did, he struck it away well. And we could have had a second penalty later in the half. And I think some of the confusion here was caused by RTV, because they had Tom Miller and Gordon Smith commentating, and they didn't appear to quite grasp what the situation was. So I had people actually getting in touch with me after the game going, why didn't you go on about Kent's penalty? It was a stonewaller. Well, I agree it was a stonewaller, but what they do in a situation like that is they check for offside, because the offside had been awarded. You saw the referee clearly after the VAR check signal for an offside, and Livy took a free kick. So that was what it was. Kent was offside. Some people saying that they didn't show us the graphics. The graphics that are available to the VAR room are different to the ones that are a non-Sky or whatever TV company will produce. So I think that was the reason for it. Because it was certainly a penalty. I mean, he chops back inside and the defender just takes him out. But offside given. And I suppose, we can all get involved in the kind of east end of the city thing going, oh, it probably wasn't offside and they're just doing it, but it's not really a route I want to go down, to be honest.
There's a lot of cognitive dissonance about VAR, and I think supporters' attitudes and knowledge is still catching up with it, because the conversation is just a slime pit. It really is, because I see in Twitter after that, I say, why is there even a debate about that penalty, the one that Caroline and you were talking about a minute ago? And then they go back to Cartage at Parkhead. But the thing is, if VAR existed for any length of time before that episode with Cartage, we would have been expecting it to be given, right? So because it's such a fleeting and hard to confirm thing with the naked eye, a jersey pull. How bad is it? You can't. Has it actually materially impeded the player? You can't really tell that for the naked eye, but you can certainly do it with VAR. And it's a great thing, because what it does is it frees up corner kicks and set pieces now like never before, because you only need to go back a season or two and we had NFL style blocking for Ross County, and it was a tactic adopted by a lot of teams, and there was nothing we could do about it, and we were getting the sharp end of that. So the second one with Kent, I don't think the defender knew it was offside, so he's clearly committed a foul, but this is the conversation about fouls and penalties and Rangers. You're going to get more penalties at Rangers because you're in the box more often. This isn't there's no science to it. And what is annoying me, however, is the discourse in the media, and you get the useful idiots, as we know, because next week when we go to play them at Hampden, there will be pressure on those officials to stand up to what will come if they give a decision against Celtic. I'm interested to see if we could ever have a situation where the VAR officials are anonymous, right? I mean, we announced who the referee was and who the full shebang was for VAR the other week, and I thought, well, do we need that? Is there any loss to knowing who's in the VAR ice cream van or whatever it is?
I think the argument is, and it's all over the world, that they do announce who the VAR people are, and I think it is because otherwise you know what will happen. They'll just go, oh, who are these anonymous guys making the decision? So that's to try and at least that someone has the responsibility.
But would it not free up their responsibility to do it without feeling a favour? Because I suppose, well, I'm arguing against my point here, I suppose it would need the world to actually acknowledge that there's some kind of pressure being applied.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's not even being acknowledged.
You're asking for maturity in Scottish football, Andrew. The fact that suggestion that you've made is one that needs to be made is because we don't have a situation where people are growing up and just accept that it can happen. So into the second half then, and Kaz, I thought, as Andy mentioned there, I thought we came out sharper. You know, not really a shot we tend to in the second half. Sakala gets the shot away. Pressure is beginning to build. Kemar Roof comes on and, as we've already mentioned, looked really, really sharp, really good. Has an effort straight away. It did look like a goal kick. I'm not haranguing the referee here, but when you saw the replay, the goalkeeper's actually got a touch on it it's a worldie of a save, in all honesty. But then doesn't take as much longer. Rangers break from a rare Livy attack, and Ryan Kent is running with the ball. He gets brought down by Omiyonga, who is on a yellow. He gets the red card, and up steps Tav. And what I loved about this goal, Kaz, was early on the season when we were at Livingston, Tav got a free kick and he put it the other corner. And the goalkeeper got a lot of criticism that day because it was his side. He'd put the wall on the other side. He's looking right at it, and it goes in over his head. And people were saying he should have done better there. I think that was on not only his mind, but also Tav's. I think both of them remembered that. And the goalkeeper, for me, stands and, well, I don't care what happens, it's not coming in this side, right? And it's just, and Tav rather brilliantly goes, okay, then fine, I'll put it in the other. But even that makes it sound a lot simpler than it is. I love that he had the idea to do that. I love that he won that mind game with the goalkeeper, but you still need the skill to execute it because it is right in the postage stamp.
Yeah, absolutely. It is beautifully placed in that top left corner. The amount of skill it takes to do that. And it's clear that Tav must really practice that, because we've seen Tav take a few breathtaking free kicks in his time. We've not seen one in a while like that. So delighted for him that he's got one of those to add to the tally again. But you're right, the kind of easier path would have been to go for the other corner. And like you say, he probably would have expected that the keeper's going to compensate for that last free kick. And given the fact that we do play these teams regularly, that is a kind of psychological win that you can have over some of your opponents already. And like you say, Tav being able to actually execute a plan like that is something different altogether. And I wonder if he would have known at the start of the week. I'm sure he said he'd been discussing it throughout the week that he was going to be inducted into the Hall of Fame. And I wonder if he just thought, this would be a fantastic way for me to set up what's going to be a wonderful end to the week with getting inducted to the Hall of Fame.
Well, it certainly would have been a bit flatter if we'd not got the win, but after that, it was pretty set. Andy, again, it being Scotland, some people saying, oh, it's a soft second yellow. I didn't think it was. I think Kent's away. Guy goes in, doesn't get the ball, it gets impeded. He's away with the ball, he gets impeded, and he gets brought down. Yeah, it's a bit, I don't think the boy goes, I'm going to do him. I don't think that, but he's making a kind of last-ditch tackle to try and get in, doesn't get the ball. And this, well, then he tries to pull out. Well, it's a bit late then, isn't it, when the guy's been left sprawling across the turf? Unfortunate, but it was a second yellow.
if a hand's on the halfway line or in his own half, it's no a yellow card.
I agree,
But
aye.
the thing that the pundits and whatever I watched the weekend, I've listened to, the roof's in the box if he gets by that guy and he'll have a shot on the goal with the goalie to beat. So of course it's a yellow card. I might sound a wee bit incredulous, but the fact that he's even up for debate, I kind of lose the plot because there was contact. All right, Roof maybe could have kept going, right? And maybe, but when you're running in that position, the balance is such a fine thing that it's very, very easy to go over, and you might take one or two steps after the contact before you fall over. That doesn't mean it's not a foul. And the first one was a yellow card as well. I actually thought Stephen Kelly was the worst of the lot in the edge of the 6-yard edge of the penalty box in the first half on Kamara. He went flying in with force. I thought it was high, and I thought it was very, very lucky not to escape red for that. But nah, they're two yellows. They're two yellows. There's no question about it. And there's an argument that said when he's denied a goal scoring opportunity. So I just don't get and this isn't a blue tinted glasses. This is if that happened to us at the other end of the park, I'd be saying, oh, you can't do that there, and no expect the referee. And the point I would make, Dave, is that I've said that VAR. Know that it's keeping referees honest. That's not the right phrase. I don't think referees are bent. But what it does is it leaves them no room for their making decisions, which I don't think were made before on the park. So the likes of that one, sometimes I think you would get away with that in Scotland. But see, after VAR, I tend to feel that those things are getting punished because of VAR, because it'll be looked at. And
I'm not sure that one would have been because it was a second yellow.
Well, maybe no, you're right, because it's not a straight red. But I think it's creating a behaviour in the referees where if they see it, they act on it. Whereas before, you know, and I know that referees, no a nod and a wink, but it's no far off it.
Yeah, I just like I say, I thought
just get away with
it. I think that, and I get it, right, because there is a difference between somebody running in A to do somebody or B to just completely wild missed times it and sends the boy sprawling. But in that one, he goes in towards the ball, doesn't get it, impedes the man, clipping him, as you say, taking it, stopping a dangerous attack. And we all agree now on the halfway line that if somebody's breaking and they get hauled back, everyone in the ground, the player knows it's a yellow card. Everyone agrees. Tav got at the weekend, Tav got done with one. And it was stonewall yellow card, no complaints whatsoever. And I felt that one. There was still time for a third Kaz, that man Roof we've been discussing. He got in the end of one to finish after a couple of efforts were blocked near the line. And a nice way to finish up the match. I say the manager had time to bring on some players, was able to bring on young Bailey Rice, which was nice to see. And it sets us up quite nicely to head to Hampden. We couldn't be in any better run of results. I mean, literally, I suppose we could have beaten Celtic, but that is it. One draw, and the rest, all victories since Beale came in.
Yeah, and I was glad for Ruth, actually, because he was probably a little unlucky that the first effort, I'm sure it was him, was saved. But he was alive, and after that little bit of a scramble, he did get the opportunity to score. He put that away, and I do, like I said earlier, think we've missed a little bit of that penalty box threat. So you're right. We've kept the pressure up, and Martindale, in fact, said beforehand, pre-Beale coming in, there was kind of one clear kind of front runner in Scottish football. Now it's neck and neck. It's literally neck and neck, and Beale's got us back, playing credibly. You know, teams aren't expecting that they might get a result against us anymore. And even though we didn't play well in that first half, I never felt, like Andy had said, that there was anything other than a victory on the cards. It was eventually comfortable. I know the goals took a wee while coming, and the first, of course, was a penalty, but it was just never in doubt. And I would say that's a pretty consistent theme with Beale now. Frustratingly, we still don't seem to start games well, and we quite often need a bit of a reboot at half-time. But even with that, it's still, you know, a night and day compared to some of the performances we saw under Gio. So heading into a cup final, I don't really think you can ask for much more. And it's going to, of course, be difficult because our opposition are in some pretty fantastic form as well. But it all comes down to the players on the day executing that plan. And like you say, what we've got on the bench. So depending on who comes back, I certainly don't feel too nervous going into that game. I think the players and fans should be quite confident. We've got the right to feel confident going into Sunday.
Andy, the away form since Beale came in, and I think that it's not unfair to say that the away form in 2022 was probably the thing that ended up costing Gio his job, really, because we struggled, and there was always a draw coming along. You know, defeats were rare, but we shipped a lot of points on the road last year. Since Beale's came in, that's Pittodrie, Tannadice, Dingwall, Rugby Park, Tynecastle, now the Tony Macaroni. Places that are tough. I'm not saying, by the way, before anybody starts, that we shouldn't be winning at these. We should. That's why we change managers. But it's still a pretty good habit that we're getting into, that they're becoming quite routine, and we're chalking them up and, right, chips and hame. That, Caroline touched on it there, it's building up that sense of teams going, there's probably nothing there for us at the weekend, as opposed to Rangers are coming, we really, we're going to put one over in them. Especially as you come to this stage of the season when those teams, they're kind of looking about them in the league and they've got things they need to do. And Celtic have benefited from this. We benefited from it in the past. You see it in England at the moment when teams sort of go, we're probably going to get beat this one. The big one for us is next week when we've got the team that's a place above us or two places below us. It's a good habit to get into.
You're bang on. I mean, the belief part, we were talking about your belief, but also you have the other effect with the opposition have to think, geez, they're flying, or they're much harder to beat, even when they're not playing well. St Johnstone away, St Mirren away, probably costing us the league just now. If we're 4 points behind Celtic just now, then I think there's been a far better frame of mind with regards to the league. But what Beale's done is, I think the players are much more assured in terms of what they're supposed to be doing, right? Which sounds silly when you talk about Gio being he was a fairly, probably too tactical for our players. But and then there's also, you could argue, Beale's had the benefit of having a settled back four with our two best centre halves fit and firing, which latterly Van Bronckhorst didn't. But it's more than that. It's more than that, because you think about Tannadice, we're finding solutions in an attacking sense where we weren't before. We weren't even getting close to it before. And he's done things that just make sense, and that most of the Rangers support look at it and say, right, well, Gio, you should have done that, and it cost your job. Kent being one of them, he was tied with an elastic band to the touchline, infuriatingly so. Beale, one of the first things he did is release him and gives him a bit of a freer role. His use of Tillman is the single reason why we're not talking about Tillman in the terms we are, because he sees him as an 8, whereas Van Bronckhorst put him out wide, and I thought he was ruining him to an extent. So there's a lot of things that Beale has done which seem simple, but he's applied them, and I think the players are much more confident in themselves, understand their roles, and when we go away, we refer back to the Cowfields, right? St Johnstone, and what else was it? And then the plastic pitch, it's not really phasing them because they've got belief in themselves. I think the league's too far away. I think Celtic are just too relentless at that point.
They are. Firstly, they are, and secondly, there's no scoreboard pressure on them. And you're absolutely right. When you're chasing something down, if a team can go out and play relaxed and go, well, 9 points clear, right? Yeah. We can draw the day. It's not the end of the world. They play actually with a wee bit more verve and relaxed, and they keep I'm proud of their record since Beale came in, but equally they've matched it. So we need to be honest and say 9 points is probably too much. You never know though, but certainly I'll keep believing. Marvin definitely taught us all that. But let's move on then. And last night was the Hall of Fame dinner to open up the officially new Edmiston House. Of course, it's been open for a few matches, but that was the big gala dinner at it. We went along as Heart, not to the dinner. We weren't allowed into that, but we were able to get interviews with the three members of three members of the Rangers family, really, but current squad actually, who've been added into the Hall of Fame. Now, we're dropping these interviews all week on Heart and Hand. I'm going to play you the Allan McGregor one, folks. And if you want to hear from Stephen Davis and James Tavernier, then go to our Patreon, patreon.com, Heart and Hand, and you'll get those interviews tomorrow and Wednesday. But this is what Greasy had to say. Hi, Allan. How you doing, mate? Congratulations, Allan, on being inducted. Congratulations on being inducted into the Hall of Fame. 21 years ago since you first played for the team. How does it feel?
I said there it was an honour and a privilege, a special moment for me. I said before I'm no one for individual honours, but this is a wee bit different. Just special, and to be part of this unbelievable club's history and have my name on that marble staircase means a lot.
Looking back over your time at the club, 2 spells, success in both of them, which not many get to achieve. What were the biggest highlights throughout that? You don't need to limit yourself to one.
Winning trophies. That's got to be the highlight. That's what this club's used to. It's what it demands. That's what we demand of ourselves. So it's obviously got to be winning trophies.
Is there a sense of pride about helping the club recover from where it was a few years ago? And even when you arrived in 2018, hadn't there been trophies won for a while, no European football at all, just a bit, and now you look back on this second spell and look at what you've achieved. Is there a real sense of achievement there?
There is. Obviously I wish it was more, to be honest with you, as probably everybody does, but a great man once said you can't pick and choose when you're successful, but no, there is when you go back and like 55, Scottish Cup last year, the European run, it's all been a steady progress, but now's the time I think we need to be more dominant and need to win more trophies regularly.
Allan, this club has been very fortunate, especially the last 30 years, to just one legendary keeper after the other. Your name now is not just in that conversation, it's the very top alongside Andy Gorham. As the kid who trained with those guys, how does it feel to be in that conversation? Not just having your name on the staircase with so many, but many would regard as the greatest number 1 Rangers have ever had.
Again, it's an honour to be part of that conversation. I wouldn't want anybody to fall out about it in the pub or anything, but I'm sure they can look back and have a good conversation about goalies that loved playing for the club. I'm sure I said that recently actually to somebody. It's not an argument, it's not who's the best of this, it's just looking back and going Gorham, Woods, Kloss, to everybody else that I've not mentioned, no disrespect. But just to have a good conversation about it and not an argument, just be discussing amongst yourself in the pub.
You obviously left at one point. This night might have been very far from your thoughts then. How special and how important has this second spell been to you in enshrining your name in that legend?
Well, it must be. But I've enjoyed it. I love the club. I've always loved the club. I want the best for the club. And this last spell's been good for me personally, obviously, because it probably gave me the position to get in the Hall of Fame. So, it's been great.
Allan, congratulations.
Thanks very much.
The award tonight. Most often when we get a striker or a midfielder, we ask them their big moments or big goals, etc. You've had so many big moments as a goalkeeper. Do you have any favourites? Any personal highlights, your saves? There's likes of Bremen, Prague, so many penalty saves. Is there any that really stand out for you that are special?
Ones that mean something probably. I don't know, I think there was one against Celtic years ago, Hinkle. I think the 1-1 nothing. I think they won the league that year. I think that was a European one, but it was just important. The Samaras won at Parkhead, which kept it 1 each, which helped us. It was a vital time in the season. Penalty, obviously, here against Celtic. Bremen, as you say, Prague, but at the end of the day, it didn't matter. But it's still, incredible. I suppose, in your collection, I suppose. But there's loads of different memories for different reasons, but obviously ones that mean something and actually made you win things.
Talking about winning and it being the focal point of your career and your time here at Rangers, how much are you looking forward to the weekend coming?
It'll be good. Obviously it'll be difficult. It's a cup game, anything can happen. Those games are a lot of times it's the team that wants it more. So hopefully we can show that in the day and hopefully win the cup.
Caroline, our podder, our beloved podder, your beloved bestie, Marina, was there. She's Allan McGregor daft. It must have been a very emotional moment for her, because it was quite clearly a very emotional moment for him.
Yeah, were her screams audible to you? Kind of, I know you were in the main hall, but I'm certain
I was so affronted. Good Ayrshire term there.
Do you know what? Yeah, he deserves all the plaudits. I mean, Marina's obviously his biggest cheerleader, but I think it's safe to say that everyone has a soft spot for Allan McGregor, because he's really pulled off some quite outstanding moments, and he isn't always the one to get kind of emotional and speak about things that obviously mean a lot to him. So hearing you guys chat to him there and him open up about just how much he loves the club. He's speaking like a fan as well as a player. And we've only heard that just a limited kind of few times from him. And hearing about some of what he considers his special moments. And they align pretty closely with what I think most fans would call out as well. What I thought of initially was the Samaras penalty, and I'm glad to hear that he mentioned that. And Bremen, of course, he's really deserving, and I don't understand any debate on any of the three inductees to the Hall of Fame, because all three for me I think really deserve their place on that wall, and all of them mentioning just how special it is to have their names on that as they go up the marble staircase as players currently, and I'm sure as kind of former players coming back to the club at points in the future, that will be really special to them.
Yeah, I'll be honest, Andy, when we heard, and we didn't know who it was that was being inducted until we got there. So we didn't know. And when we heard it was Allan McGregor, we were like, well, very well deserved, absolutely needs it. And then it hit us, it's like, oh God, we're going to need to interview him, because you know what the interviews are like. And we did genuinely expect that he'd come in and go, you look, so Allan, how's it feel to be in the Hall of Fame? It's all right, isn't it? Not bad. That's what we thought we'd get, because that's what he's usually like with the media. But I think you could hear it there. You could hear it in, all of our voices. It wasn't like that at all. That was off-camera Allan McGregor that we got there. And I have to say, and people will hear this with the Davis and Tav interviews as well later in the week, I don't know, surprised isn't the right word, right? But I think sometimes in the modern era, there is more of a gap between players and fans. There just is. It's because of the money, right? And there are so many rewards in football now for these guys, riches that we can only dream of. It is different to back in the day when you had guys who, when we first started going, they weren't on a hell of a lot more, especially, the younger ones. And when they finished playing, they needed to get jobs. There wasn't quite that same distance. And I think sometimes we can think that we view them as two-dimensional characters. To actually see how, and you could see visibly how much it meant to the three of them to be included in the Hall of Fame. I think that was just a lovely moment for them, but also for us as fans. Any issues with current players being inducted? Now, people have asked me, is this the first time it's happened? No, Davy Weir was inducted when he was still playing. So it has happened before. These are the first inductions since 2014, incidentally. Any issues with that? I mean, I probably would lean towards people should be retired first, but it doesn't keep me awake at night.
Nah, I'm the same as you. I think it should be, I was going to say posthumous. It's not what I mean.
Not posthumous to their career.
Posthumous to the
that's
career,
excessive. Right? Yeah, let them have their night.
Tell me the word is for that. So, but online and the Twitter, and I know I shouldn't get sucked into that. I look at it and I see some of the reactions. I'm like, chill. The fact is that we've had a legendary event happen under our nose. 55 and the recovery from where we were is seismic, right? And I think sometimes we get a bit too caught up in, well, that's what we do, we win things. We win things, but They don't just happen by accident, and they certainly don't happen by accident when you see what we went through and where we had to come back for. Now, Tavernier's one that seems to be getting the most of the conjecture around it, because I don't know. I don't know what James Tavernier has today to convince some folk. When you look at some of the people in the Hall of Fame, and that's not to decry them, they're worthy. But the James Tavernier story is kind of the story of our recovery, because he came in, under Warburton, and but he was there when we were getting scudded off Celtic, and days were dark as dark could be, and he's came through that, and today what he's done as a captain, and apart from the iconic kind of imagery of him walking across the confetti with that championship trophy, the number 2 in the back, he has been our stalwart for many a season now. He's the guy we turn to, even still, despite all the signs we make. When the chips are down on the park and we're chasing games in the last 20 minutes, Tavernier's the guy we turn to. He's been a fantastic captain for us. All right, he's not perfect. All right, he's not everybody's cup of tea, but we need to start recognising what we've got, because we'll not recognise it until he's gone for some of us. I think Davis, I think it's perfect timing, because he's probably not going to play another game for Rangers, so I think it's fitting that when he's in where he is in his career, that he gets that, no for sympathy value, because it's absolutely merited. But I think we need to start celebrating the legend of 55. And I know we need to build on it. And I know we've probably missed a wee bit of momentum by what happened last year. But what's happened to our club and what we've achieved is extraordinary. And we need to start, but no championing it and celebrating it for the sake of celebrating it, and at the expense of what we should be doing just now. That's not what I'm saying. But I think they 3 epitomise what we went through and what we've done, because they're 3 fantastic players, and 55. I'm sure the same for you and Caroline. They'll live with me forever, and it is legendary time.
Yeah, I mean, I think Davis and McGregor are actually in the higher tier. I think they're proper, genuine, bona fide Rangers legends, and I don't
100%.
have any problem saying that. One of the complaints I see a lot, Caroline, is people say, well, it's just a marketing thing. Well, it is. All Hall of Fames are, because if you look at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame or the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame, people go in it every year. Whereas if it was an actual, just based on merit, it would only happen every so often when you would recognise, somebody would come along and you would recognise that person. If you're doing it every year, yes, it's partly a marketing event. But I'm kind of more with Andy that what's wrong with celebrating the achievements of some of our players? And I don't really get this idea that it cheapens it somehow. If we start sticking Ian Black in, then we've gone a bit far. But I think there's a case for all 3 of those guys to be in. I just don't have a problem with it. And to your point, Andy, about the moaning, I noticed this. I think that it's not unique to Rangers. There's a performative arc to it now by guys who it becomes almost a persona, particularly on social media. I hate everything. I moan about everything. This is who I am. Look at what.
Look at my standards.
Yeah, look at
They're
my
so high, nothing can satisfy them.
And I'm the only guy who sees this. I'm the last angry man. It's tragic because it is just, and you just know that they've got an absolute torn-faced boot of a partner that they never get a word in edgeways at home. They fucking hate their lives, and it's just, this is how they express it. They're like, I'm the only one who can see this, and you're like, yeah, very good, mate. Just have a can of juice and a wank and chill. It just, if you hate everything, what's the common denominator in it? And I don't understand rage about things like this, right? Even if you disagree, and I'm perfectly willing to listen to your argument that, I don't think there's any argument about Davis and McGregor. I'm perfectly willing to listen to your argument about Tav. I might disagree, but there are people who get genuinely upset about it, and I just think that's more to do with the person rather than, at the weekend, people were sending me tweets, people were criticising me about the banner, and one guy actually said that I criticised David Murray because I wanted to suck up to the board, and now I won't criticise the board because I want to suck up to the board. And it's like, people start with a negative and work backwards, and all you can do is just laugh, to be honest. It's really not worth losing sleep over. Allan McGregor said it there, Caroline. I don't want people phoning out about it in the pub.
Yeah, exactly. And I wonder with some of these fans that are just constantly annoyed at something, anything, like, where's the joy in following Rangers for you? Because we'll have plenty to be genuinely perturbed about and annoyed about. So for stuff like this, I don't understand why it gets so heated. And I think as well, you do have to probably have some regularity to this type of event. You have to, like you say, it's the same applies for most Hall of Fames. So long as you balance that with merit, I don't see a problem with it. And I also don't think that there has to be set criteria for it. I think a lot of people are looking at, well, look at the number of titles Tav, for example, has won. That should be a reason he doesn't, or isn't admitted at the moment, or admitted. But I think there's a myriad of factors that you've got to take into consideration. And Andy kind of articulated it really well there. The journey that Tav's come on, joining us as a lower league team and kind of being such a part of that journey, but not only just getting us back to winning that title, getting to the pinnacle of Scottish football, but also leading us to a European final. That's once in a lifetime stuff. And it's not by luck or good fortune. He's a fantastic player. The stats prove it. And you might not like him, and you might not like that defensively he's not your traditional player and right back, but modern football's changed, and what he offers going forward and in other areas of the pitch, it more than makes up for that. And I think some people don't like that he's a kind of loud voice and kind of a leader in that way on the pitch, but I think you can't deny that he leads in so many other ways. So yeah, I'm definitely in the Tav kind of camp here. I think he more than merits that, and maybe it would have been nicer at the end of his career or towards the end of his career to recognise him then, but I've got no qualms with doing that now. And yeah, the kind of nonsense online is just a bit overkill for me.
And can I just say, I've just got a can of juice here. That's it.
You better
one of two.
Yeah, one
I'm
of
really
two.
relaxed, but
Yeah,
juice.
one of
Halfway.
two. One of two. What I'll also say is, I don't think it's the worst idea in the world to give McGregor and Tav that kind of boost the week before a cup final.
Probably easier ways to do it, to go.
I don't think it's the worst idea at all to send them into a cup final with that behind them.
No, I don't disagree. I think some folk will actually have to wake up to the fact that Tav is a big figure in our history.
Yeah, well,
because they can continue denying it.
Andy, it's Scotland. When people make their mind up, that's it, right? And nothing will be accepted into the argument afterwards. You know that. I've had people saying things to me like, "Oh, well, half his goals are penalties. But penalties no count." Right?
No.
I mean, it's just bullshit.
Ask Aaron Ramsey about penalties.
Exactly. I'm going to have to ask you. Right? Andy, who's the best goalkeeper in Rangers history? I know, I'm sorry. I know. That's a bastard of a question.
Dear listener, now you know this is all on the spot because I'd have thought of that. I think it's Andy Gordon.
Kaz?
Just.
Yeah, and I've seen more of McGregor than, of course, I did Gorham, but I would have to also say Gorham. I mean, some things were just almost not human. The way he was able to.
It's way far.
I'm going to slightly sit on the fence here, and I'm going to say I maintain I've never seen a better goalkeeper than Andy Gorham in 92, 93. And I mean ever, right? He could do things that no other keeper I've ever seen could do. I think for that year, he was the best on the planet. And there haven't been any times in my lifetime, to be honest, where I could say he's the best player in the world in his position. 92, 93, I would have said that about Gorham. So I think that he's probably the best. But the greatest Rangers goalkeeper, I think, is Allan McGregor. For his longevity, his consistency, his professionalism, his standards, all of that.
That wasn't the question you asked.
No, I know, but it's my game. I can do what I like. So,
Change the rules halfway.
absolutely. I can do what I like. It's, it's up to me. Right, folks, that'll do us on here for this week. Heart and Hand Extra will be with you later in the week with a full preview, obviously, of the Monumental Cup final that is coming up at the weekend, which, by the way, I think we will win. I'd just like to thank our producers in London, Mike Lee and Paul Myers, and thank my two guests. First of all, the splendid Caroline Morrison.
Yeah, thank you, David. It was good to chat to you, Andy.
And the wonderful Andy McGowan.
Pleasure as always, David.
We'll be back here next week. Win, lose or draw. I think it'll be a win. Hopefully a celebratory pod. So until then, folks, on Sunday, if you're a Rangers fan, I hope your team wins. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.